Hey everybody, welcome to Awkward Teenage Years. I am your host tonight, Grant Bowen. How's everybody doing? All right. You guys are a good crowd. I like it. All right. So quick question. By round of applause, how many of you have been to an Awkward Teenage Years show before? All right, okay. How many of you have never been to an Awkward Teenage Years show? Yes, thank you. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So, just to let you know what you're in for tonight, this is a storytelling show. We've got a terrific lineup of guests here who are going to share true stories from their middle school and high school years, their teenage years. Stories about passing the test, learning to drive, learning to drink, asking someone out on that first date, but most importantly of all, coming of age. This is a show we've been doing here at Under St. Mark's since before the pandemic even, and we continue to do it today, so we're very happy to have you here. I'm just going to chat with you a little bit, just to give our latecomers some time to get here and everything. Something I've been doing lately is I've started working with a personal trainer because it turns out if you gain 30 plus pounds over the course of 5 years, that doesn't just go away, no matter how much Greek yogurt you eat. So I've been working with him. He's a great guy. His name is Antonio. And we get along really well. You know, he tries to really push me. Hey guys, come on in. Feel free to find a seat. He tries to really push me, really, you know, he's not being a dick about it, but he's really just trying to get me to like strain and hit those walls and everything like that. And it's what I need, absolutely. But here's the thing, when he and I started working together, I was so out of shape that I've occasionally had to keep running to the bathroom to go throw up. And if you hear some laughs of recognition, this is because this is very similar to a story I've told on this show before. Between 7th and 10th grade, I was on the wrestling team in school, back home in Alabama, yes. My team, where there were a lot of great guys, a lot of good wrestlers. Yes, that kid right there, thought he could fight. But a lot of great guys, a lot of good athletes, strong wrestlers. I was not. I got pinned. I got pinned a lot. I've been pinned so many times. I've seen just about every ceiling of every gym in Jefferson County. And to top it off, I did not have a great nickname when I started because similarly, I was also so out of shape that when I first started practicing in 7th grade, I kept having to run outside the wrestling room to go throw up. And our head coach, Coach Franks, was not as chill about it as Antonio. And one day, he called me out in front of the whole team. He's like, well, Bowen, if you're going to keep throwing up in the middle of my practices, I'm going to start calling you Barf. Do you want that? And he did. He called me Barf. He was like, from that point on, it was like, Barf, go grab a weight. Barf, go run a stadium. And I'm like, maybe he's tearing down my self-esteem because he likes me. So one night in 10th grade, we get to this dual meet with Aniana High School. They were a new team at the time, and rumor had it they weren't very good. And I was like, wait, somebody might suck more than me? I didn't think of that before. And after the weigh-in, the coaches come up to me and they let me know that I'm going to be wrestling below my weight class. And so I thought, oh my God, this is it. This couldn't be more perfectly set up. Like, it's not a good team. I'm wrestling below my weight. My mom brought Dramamine. How could this go wrong? I could actually win this thing. And so I go out. It's time for my match. I'm in my singlet and my headgear, ladies. And I run out. I meet my opponent in the middle of the mat. He's this tall, scrawny, skin and bones, pasty white blonde kid. And we shake hands. We hit the stance. The ref blows the whistle and we lock up. And as we're going around, I look down and I see that his footing is off. And I say, this is it. You got to take him down. You got to take him down now. Go, go, go. And so I get him in a headlock. I get him down to the mat. He starts screaming. And I've never leapt to my feet quicker in my life. Like I jumped up, threw up my hands as if to show I had no weapons, which I was wearing a singlet. Everyone knew. But and he's writhing around in pain. The medics are checking on him, and they determined that he can't go on. So that means I've won the match. And I couldn't believe it. I was like, oh my God, I actually won a match. And I run to the middle of the mat, and the ref holds up my hand, and everyone's going nuts, and I'm just soaking it in. And I go and find my dad in the stands. And at this point, my dad had been recording all of my practices so that later we could review the footage, and he could, show me what I'm doing wrong. But we're looking at this, and I see what happened. So when I got him in a headlock and our bodies went down this way, his leg stayed planted. So his knee went this way. And as we went down to the mat, his leg basically kind of folded in on itself. Now you want to barf. But I had broken this kid's leg, and at that moment, any thrill I had from the win just dissipated because I had really hurt this guy. And so I went and I find him in the back, and they've got his leg propped up, and they're taping ice on it. And I'm like, hey man, listen, I did not mean for that to happen that way, and I'm really sorry, and I hope you're gonna be okay. And he's like, yeah man, it's fine. And we shake hands, and I stick around to see a stretcher show up, and they carry him out to the ambulance. So I go to school the next week, and my teammate Heath finds me, and he's like, hey Bowen, that was awesome when you broke that kid's leg in Aniana. That was so cool. Hey, I got a new name for you. Bone Crusher. You like that? You're Bone Crusher Bowen. Heath went to seminary, by the way. So for the rest of that week, everyone on my team started calling me Bone Crusher. But whenever I heard it, I would just think about how I hurt that kid, and that didn't feel great. So coming back to the present, not long after I start the personal training, my brother Brad comes to visit me in Jersey City. And we're walking around town, and I'm showing him the neighborhood, and I point out that, by the way, I'm working with this trainer, and it's funny because I'm throwing up in the middle of our sessions again. And without missing a beat, Brad just looks at me and he goes, barf's back, baby. And with that, I think it's time for us to start our show. Are you guys ready? All right. While I bring out my lazy notes here we go. Our first storyteller is a writer, comedian, cartoonist, and a fellow producer at the Story Collider. We're excited to have him on. Please welcome Zack Stovall.
Thank you. Whoa, okay. A lot of people used to make fun of that guy, and now it's my turn. All right. So I remember going to my first party in high school, and I was not invited. I had just transferred to an all-boys school out of town, and I had heard about a party at one of the girls who went to our sister all-girls school. Thought I might be able to sneak in and attempt to make some friends. It was a very John Hughes-esque sort of scene. There was, loud music and red cups and a completely destroyed liquor cabinet. And so it was December of my freshman year, and I had just already had kind of 3 strikes against me. The first strike being, I'm from this really small town that I'm sure none of you have ever heard of. It's called Arkansas. And the school I transferred into was all boys Catholic, but it was in Little Rock. It was about 45 minutes away. I lived out in the country. And all of these kids from Little Rock, Arkansas thought that I was an enormous hick because I lived in a suburb of Little Rock, Arkansas. So I was the redneck. Strike 2, I had tried to kind of commiserate with my, football teammates, like at the beginning of the summer when we were all practicing together. And all of these kids that I didn't know, all they did at, the breaks between practices was talk about how many blowjobs that they had gotten the summer between 8th and 9th grade. Now, out in the sticks of Benton, Arkansas, I grew up in a pretty religious household. I was familiar with the concept. But I was looking at these goblins, and I was thinking, there's got to be some lost in translation thing. They've got to be talking about hickeys. There's no way they're talking about that. So in an effort to commiserate with my teammates, I said, you know, I got myself a lot of blowjobs this summer too. Looking like that. And this guy stood up in the back and he goes, no, he didn't. And he wasn't elected, but he represented everybody. And there were boos, and I just had to bear down and say no, it definitely happened. It definitely happened. And everybody just knew it was bullshit, but I just had to sit there and be like, no, it definitely happened. And the reason that guy was able to stand up so confidently was because, well, let me just tell you what I kind of looked like, visual included. Freshman year, or between freshman or 8th grade and my freshman year, I came in at about 5'3", 5'4", and somewhere between 230 and 245 pounds. And if I stopped there, it would have been adorable. But I also had really bad acne. Has anybody ever heard of Accutane? I took a lot of it. I had to take a lot of it. I went to the dermatologist, and he said the third worst thing that a dermatologist can say to you, which is, it's not the worst I've ever seen. With the second worst thing being, it's the worst I've ever seen. The first worst thing that you can hear, I heard from my dad. He said, son, it looks like your face caught on fire and somebody tried to stomp it out with a golf cleat. You know how your dad loves you and stuff. So I also had, like a lot of kids, I had braces, but I had intense braces. I had the braces you needed to wear headgear with, but my lovely orthodontist was like, hey, you got this headgear, you should wear it all day, every day for a year. But you'd never survive. Just wear it at night for 2 or 3 years and you'll be fine, you'll be fine, you'll be fine. And I didn't just have braces. I also had a brace. In the glistening metropolis of Arkansas, there are 2 things to do: play football and practice for football. So lift weights for football. So I was lifting weights that I shouldn't have been doing. My muscles had developed where I could do quite a lot of weight. The bones didn't. I had 2 fractures in my L5 vertebrae as my freshman year began. So I had this sort of brace around my back, this girdle, if you will. And it sort of pushed up, you remember I was saying I was fat? And it sort of pushed up everything under my arms and made me kind of stick out. Now, I don't know if you folks here in New York are familiar with the term bowing up, but it looks like you're trying to make yourself look big as though you want to fight people, which I, at 5'4", 240 pounds, did not want to do, but it sure looked like it. So I said I was trying to sneak into this party, but when you're got a face that even your dad says caught on fire, and you're walking around in a medical grade corset, sneaking's not really an option. So I go and the party's there, it's happening. And I get there and I'm from the country, and so people are surprised. They're like, wow, Zach, glad you made it. Kind of come, hey, did you walk here? Haha, whatever. And they kind of start, patting me on the back. They're nice about it. They start patting me on the back and they feel my back brace. And they kind of start slapping me on the back, just kind of giving me a slap here and there. And then they start really slapping me on the back, and it doesn't hurt because, like I said, medical grade, huge back brace. And then this kid named Andrew just walks up and as hard as he can punches me in the stomach. And it doesn't hurt. And everybody kind of goes, yay! And I kind of go, all right! Like I said, it was December of my freshman year, so there's Christmas decorations all over the lawn, so kids are just coming up and pulling candy canes out of the yard and just smashing them on my body while I go, I'm so happy! I just really kind of celebrated it. I leaned into it. I really owned it. So at that point, the party's going great, but like most parties that are going great, the dad comes home and it's imagine every John Hughes movie dad, he looked just like that, and he gets there and he sees the red cups and he hears the music and he just goes, "The party is over!" And then somebody chucked an empty bottle of booze that they had just stolen from him, and it shattered at his feet, and everybody ran away and scattered. And I try to run away, and I waddle, and I'm going, and finally I have to borrow a cell phone from a guy and call my dad, because he knew I wasn't staying long. And he comes by and picks me up. And he takes me home. Now, I get back to school like that next week, people are like, "Oh yeah, like we were really happy to see you. You had a really we were having fun. That was a good time." And they became like my friends over like I'd say about 3 years later, because I was also loud, annoying, and desperate for attention, but we don't always grow out of those things. And so I think about this. I thought about this the last time I went to a hairstylist. I don't know if you can tell, but I think I'm going bald. So I go to my sister-in-law, Gina. She's a stylist, and she's doing the thing you do with haircuts, and where you're grabbing on the sides, and she's just slipping on up, grab here and slip on the side. And as she starts making her way toward the northern hemisphere, the hair is becoming less and less at age 23. And so she starts kind of having to grab more meticulously, and she's just got 4 single hairlets right here, and she's just like a guillotine executing them mercilessly, just like pew, 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 pew. And I go, "Gina, what are you doing?" And she goes, "I'm cutting your hair." And I go, "Just buzz it," because I had learned everything just goes better when you're able to celebrate, lean in, and just own it. Even going bald, when this is from whence you came. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Oh, he knew I wasn't staying long. We are cut from the same cloth, my friend. Man, I was thinking when I was listening to that, I similarly had, we're all friends here. I similarly had acne issues when I was a teen. My problem area was my back, and my mom's solution for that was, "Well, we'll just take you to the tanning bed a few times." Which, I don't know if that helped the back knee, but I'm sure my dermatologist will have something to say about it in a few years' time. One more time for Zack, everybody. Oh, our next storyteller is Brooklyn's favorite polymath and prize-winning photographer. He loves stories, whether he's listening to them, writing them, or listening to them. And he has a new book for sale called Smush, which is available on Amazon and other fine retailers. Give it up for Hayden M. Greene.
Yes, there we go. Yes. Hey, everybody. Hey, everybody. All right. I am nervous, so bear with me for a little bit. But there's a theme going on here of inathletic young men. And I will not disappoint. So I've been an outsider all my life. I've always been other, right? So I was, a couple of things you need to know. I was born in London, England. And because, when my mom's from Trinidad, and when you want to leave Trinidad, you go to the motherland. And back then, that was England, and she learned to be a nurse. She met my father, had a torrid affair, and bling, here I am, right? When I was 3, I moved to New York. Not so much I moved to New York. My mother moved to New York, and they have this whole rule that you have to take your kid with you. And so I show up in Brooklyn, and I'm the little British kid. I don't really fit in, right? I've got this weird accent, and a few words that I knew in American, I mispronounced them. So I finally got my footing, and I was around 9 years old, and this is the 70s. Yes, I know, I look fabulous for somebody this old. But this is the 70s, and my mother's like, no, I can't raise a young black boy in New York. This was back when New York was grimy, and there was a lot of crime. Wait a minute. The first time. All right, and so... my grandmother was retiring and going back to Trinidad, so she took me with me. So here I am in Trinidad now, and I'm now the Yankee boy that shows up, right? So I'm the outsider again. And then I'd finally find my footing 10 years later, and I go to college, and I come back to New York, and I'm the Trini boy in New York, right? So I'm never really of the place that I am. But this story is about when I was in Trinidad, when I was a young man. Another thing you need to know about me, I too was inathletic, large, and did not fit in. And so I didn't play sports very well. So I didn't play cricket. For those of you who don't know what cricket is, it's like baseball. It only has 2 runners, and look it up. All right, and I couldn't play, I didn't play soccer, or as we called it, football, because we're logical. So I didn't, I couldn't fit in with this stuff. And so I'm this fat kid from the States, right? And like they would whoop my ass on a regular basis, right? Like it was like, oh, it's Tuesday at 3 o'clock. Who's whooping Hayden's ass? I'm like, really, whose turn is it, right? And so I was desperate to fit in. And I had, though, one ace in my back pocket. So this is, again, back in the 70s, where there was no internet. It hadn't been invented yet, those of you on the live stream. And there is really not a lot of access to the outside world in Trinidad. So those people who, traveled back and forth were the ones that would be the envoy of the culture of the United States, more particularly New York, because for everybody outside of Trinidad, United States is either New York City or Toronto for some strange reason. So I had that in my back pocket. I still could talk a little bit about what was going, because I would spend my summers in Brooklyn, right? And so I knew that I could bring something from the United States, but it was never enough, because I would try to kick a ball on the pitch, and I would, it would go somewhere that it wasn't supposed to go, and then I would get my ass beat after the game, right? So it was never enough. Except one summer, I knew I had a great idea. I was going to bring something of New York back to Trinidad, back to the town that I lived in. It was called Barataria, right? I was going to bring baseball to New York. I was going to be the guy that introduced baseball to Trinidadians. I was going to call it the Barataria Baseball Club, the BBC. In hindsight, I might have used a couple of different letters, but that's neither here nor there, right? I loved the baseball. In Brooklyn, my mother's landlord, his brother was a groundskeeper at Yankee Stadium, right? Yes, the evil empire. I am a Yankee fan through and through. This guy would bring back all kinds of treats from Yankee Stadium, old calendars, bits and pieces of different things, baseball cards, all of the stuff that should be collectible right now, but somehow or the other, my mother threw them away. I'm not bitter, all right? But I loved baseball. I loved everything about it. I loved to take me out to the ball game. I loved all of the popcorn, the Cracker Jack. All of that stuff is still ingrained in me. I instill it in my children, much to their chagrin. But listen, it was an amazing time. And I was going to be the one who was going to bring it to Trinidad, and this was going to be my ticket to not get my ass whooped every day. So I show up, and I say to them, it's like, hey, here's this thing called baseball, blah, 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 blah. The one thing that you did not hear me say was that I ever played baseball. I never played baseball. I mean, I grew up in the hood, right? We played football from sewer to sewer, or there were basketball courts around, but a baseball field, yeah, we didn't have one of those, right? but that didn't stop me, right? So I show up in Trinidad and I've got one bat, right? I've got one bat. I don't have a glove. I don't have any equipment. I don't know the rules. I know nothing except my love for the game. And I'm here trying to explain this to a bunch of people who are looking at me like, we have a game that's like this. It's called Rounders. Rounders is a game like baseball. You play it the exact same way, but you hit a tennis ball with your hand and you run around. They're like, we already got this game. So like after 2 or 3 times of me trying to get them to actually play this game, they all were like, you know what's a better sport? Whooping your ass. We're gonna go back to that. And so that failed. That absolutely failed. But a couple of years after this debacle happened, I had a growth spurt. I grew into this chubby body, and I started to look a little bit like this, right? Notice I also have the I Love New York t-shirt on because I had to remind people I have access to something you don't, right? And so I grow older, I get legs out of nowhere, and I discover track and field. And I become a runner. Not the fastest runner, but if you know anything about Caribbean runners, we run fast. Like the Africans run long, we run fast, right? Something about the heat. So I become a runner, and I become the captain of my school's house. Think Harry Potter. I become the captain of my school's house for sports day. It's a job nobody wanted, but hey, listen, I lead them onto a successful sports day. I run the 4x4. I'm part of the tug of war, and I suddenly have friends. The same people that were making fun of me and beating me up all the time now couldn't, primarily because they couldn't catch me. That's, have to mention that part. But I suddenly fit in. I was finally part of the crew. And these are some of my best friends now, even though they live in a different country than I do. But it was at that moment that I started to feel myself, started to come into my own. And then I discovered the wonderful world of girls. But that is a different story for a different day. But today is about the time that me, stupidly, tried to introduce baseball to the island of Trinidad and Tobago.
Okay, real quick, can we put Hayden's picture back on the screen here? So you start this story by talking about I was this chubby kid. And this is the picture you sent us.
No pictures of me as a chubby kid.
And I was like, this motherfucker better get to a plot twist. Or I'm gonna be so mad. Me and Zach up here talking about being out of shape, and this guy is like, yeah, me too. I know. Anyway. Oh, God. Amazing story. One more time for Hayden, everybody. Are you guys having fun so far? Is this great? All right, our next storyteller is from Houston, Texas, and simply enjoys shrimp on his pizza. We're excited to have him. Give it up for Patrick Golden.
Yeah, what's up? Everybody. My name is Patrick, and I'm from Houston, Texas, and some of my uncles believe that Trump is a prophet sent down by God. Anybody else? I grew up in the religious South, like a couple of other people that have spoken on this stage here. And I grew up specifically in the United Methodist tradition in Houston. And like many people born in a religious tradition, you just go to church because that's where your family goes. You don't really think anything deeply about it. You're like, oh, this is just my activity I do on Sunday, right? So especially after my parents' divorce, I really gravitated towards my church's youth group as a social outlet. So I was there all the time, Sunday mornings, Sunday evenings, Wednesday evenings. I was going on the mystery trips, the lock-ins, all that kind of stuff. And I never really went there because I cared much about the Bible studies. I just liked that they had free donuts and You can play dodgeball in the gymnasium with some other people. You know, there's some cute girls or whatever, right? But eventually I started getting promoted, I guess, for lack of a better phrase. Like, you know, I was getting invited to other events at the church outside the youth group. I would, you know, read the gospel reading at Youth Sunday. I would, you know, be the person leading my youth group for different events. And I eventually got offered and nominated by my church to attend something called the Texas Youth Academy, which basically it's like a 2-week grooming ceremony of like the future bishops of the Methodist Church, basically. So we went to like this small university in Georgetown, Texas called Southwestern University. And it was basically like a 2-week theological boot camp. We're having guest lectures from people from Duke University, Baylor University, SMU, UT, basically explaining our faith to us. It's like the first time I really like picked up the Bible and I was like, what is this? Why, like, what is this we're talking about so much, you know? And for context, I kind of went to an abnormal Methodist church. It was a very progressive Methodist church in the Fine Arts District of Houston, very pro-LGBTQ, very pro-interfaith. But when I was at Texas Youth Academy, I'm meeting the folks from rural Texas. They have way different views on things. Like, I remember having conversations up late at night at like 3 in the morning. We're debating interfaithness. And my mom had just remarried a Jewish guy. I was just like, why does it matter what religion you are? Why is Jesus the truth? If you're just a good person, who cares? Like, why? And people are like, no, it says in the Bible that Jesus is the truth and all this. I'm like, oh my gosh. And then I'm like, yo, why are we freaking out about all this gay stuff? Like, why is that the big, like, there's like hungry people out here. Why are we like freaking out about this, right? And I don't know, like, they were so weird. Like, my roommate and my bunkmate caught me watching. I brought like a portable DVD player to like watch Seinfeld at night. And he interrupted me one time and he was like, why are you watching that satanic material? It's like, what the hell, right? So I'm really starting to question things, because up until that point in my life, I had been like anointed a preacher. Like, my church, they were grooming. I felt like I was being groomed to be a preacher up to the point. And I'm starting to have questions. Like, I'm going on the internet and I'm watching stand-up comedy for the first time in my life. I'm watching George Carlin, Louis C.K. deconstruct religion in a blasphemous way. I was like, why am I having all these sinful thoughts? At this point, I'm president of my high school's Christian student union. So I'm like praying for people that I'm worried I'm going to fail my tests. And I start praying for them. And then I'm running to the bathroom after the meeting. I'm crying because I feel like my life is a lie, right? I'm like, why am I doing this? And now I'm like trying to like bring people along the argument. I'm like, I didn't think I wasn't a Christian. I was like, I just think I'm a Christian that thinks differently. Like, I started a WordPress blog. I had a viral WordPress go out. It was called Why Love Isn't Just a Christian Thing. It was like a big interfaith diatribe or whatever. Then I posted a joke on Facebook that was like, I don't understand how Christians can be against gay people if every time you go to communion, you're getting on your knees and putting the body of man in your mouth. Now I have ex-officers, former presidents of the Christian Student Union sliding into my Facebook DMs talking about, like, you need to change your views. This is disrespectful. It's like, felt like there was like political lobbyists or something trying to influence me or something. And it kind of culminated with a trip where basically, because I did the Texas Youth Academy, I got invited to go to this thing called the Global Young People's Convocation, which basically was a group of 18 to 35-year-olds that went to Manila to discuss the Constitution of the United Methodist Church, basically. And we were amending all the rules. All the debates were anything from, like, you know, should we fund this? Should the Methodist Church divest from Israel? Is homosexuality compatible with Christian teachings? And it's people from all around the world. So I'm representing the Southwest of America. Got people from Africa, people from Russia. And I'm going up on the mic and I'm just trying to crack jokes because I think the whole thing's stupid. I'm like, yo, why we give so much about this gay stuff? Like, we got bigger problems out here. That's what I kept saying. I was like, why are we so dramatic? Like, there's starving people in Houston and Russia and Africa. What are we talking about? And I even got confronted by like a group of Kenyans. Like, they like literally held the Bible in front of me and said, do you believe this? What are you doing? But then there were a couple of Russians that actually went up to me after I, performed. I mean, not performed, but and they're like, "No, you changed our viewpoint on this. We still think being gay isn't right, but we definitely agree we're making this. This should be in the main issue. Why is this There's verses of more. My big thing is that there's way more verses about other shit. Like, why are we complaining about? But like, I don't know. So, I eventually left the church. Long story short, I left the church, and I felt like I had lost a part of me because I thought that was my calling. I thought I was gonna be a preacher. Everybody was telling me that's what I was gonna do. So I switched my major like 8 times in college or whatever, and eventually one day, like I moved to New York City right after COVID, and a friend of mine invited me to an open mic, and I performed, and it was like the first time I felt like I knew what I was doing again. Yeah, so I guess I'm a more honest preacher now, but it feels like I know what my calling is. Thank you.
Oh my God. Hey, as someone who was raised Southern Baptist in Alabama, I feel you, brother. That's truly incredible too. And I stayed in it, I think, a little longer than you do. I've told this story on the show before, where when I was in high school, I tried to start a conversion conversation with people, with a couple of people my age, in a neighborhood that was predominantly, let's just say, not like me. And I wish I had learned I had a skill like stand-up during that, because I think what I really learned from that was, don't talk to people. I think that's the main takeaway from this whole conversation. One more time for Patrick, everybody. Well done. Our next storyteller, if my phone will cooperate, here we go. Our next storyteller is a storyteller and a cartoonist who has finally gotten comfortable with her first name. When she isn't telling stories, she draws cartoons for Anoush Talks to Stuff, her webcomic about a girl who talks to inanimate objects, and co-produces the storytelling show The Armenian Power Hour with writer and storyteller Ida Zalelian. Find her and Ida at Anoush Talks to Stuff and the Armenian Power Hour on social media. And you can catch their next show this Sunday at 7 p.m. at QED in Astoria. Best part, you don't have to be Armenian. Sorry. Please welcome Anoush Froundjian.
Khuramian Lyceum wasn't your mother's secondary Armenian school. Khuramian Lyceum, Khuramian, kh sound, was the recommended secondary Armenian education for all eligible day school graduates, meeting at St. Barthan's Cathedral in New York City, where Armenian graduates can come together and learn more about Armenian culture, Armenian history, Armenian poetry, traditional songs, dances, and dining etiquette, meeting on one Saturday per month because that was enough. My parents didn't force me to go to Khuramian. They knew I was really connected to my culture, and they themselves were really involved with the community. Like, remember, this was the era when my mom did all that artwork for the diocese, and when my dad had that recurring comic strip in the Armenian Reporter called Edo and Bedo. But they said at the end of the day, it's ultimately my decision, which is all really nice and good, but I knew that either way, I would still have to be Armenian. Which is such a culture that's so misunderstood, and a history that's so unresolved. And remember, this is also the 90s, before System of a Down was System of a Down. And before Kim Kardashian was Kim Kardashian product, when my only means of survival as a new middle school kid was to try to make one whole friend and to not scare anyone away with my first and last name. So I thought, at this point, I already already understood misery so well that an extra Saturday wouldn't make a difference. So I said, okay, I'll go. So how it worked was, on those Saturdays, we'd meet at Holy Martyrs Armenian Church in Bayside, New York, and get on a bus. Because that's what Armenians do, they get on buses. Like, if there's a screening of an Armenian film that nobody knows about, we get on a bus and we go see it. If there's a demonstration at Times Square that nobody knows about, we get on a bus and we bring lamb sandwiches. If we have tickets to see the Cher show, bus. So there we have 3 buses from 3 Armenian churches, all going to St. Barton's Cathedral, the mothership, where all these Armenian kids meet in the auditorium to be greeted by Silva der Stepanian, the school's headmistress, who greeted everyone as if she were Angelica Houston from The Witches, and whose inspiration for hair, makeup, and jewelry was drawn from actual Cleopatra. So she welcomes us in, and she reads us the Kharimian Lyceum Rules and Regulations, rule and regulation, which is kind of like your basic, no more than 1 earring in each ear, no chewing gum, no mini skirt, no snicker, and no jean. So once that was all established, we went on to choir practice. Now there was one choir practice that changed me in a way that I'll never forget. And there we were in an empty auditorium on the stage learning to sing the song Hingala, which, as you know, is about an abandoned shepherd who's sad and alone because he's Armenian and who has to keep himself happy by remembering happier times. And when you get to the chorus, you have to sing the word Hingala a couple of times. And you got to really put your heart into it. And it's kind of like, and so on and so on. So I'd never heard the word Hingala before. I mean, I spoke fluent Armenian, but I never heard my dad say it. I'd never heard it in any conversation, and I was hoping that it wasn't just gibberish, because we're already so misunderstood. I thought, could we afford to be singing words that don't make sense? But anyway, so I raised my hand and I interrupt Maro Partamian, who, as you know, is the world-renowned mezzo-soprano. And I say, Maro, I have a question. I'm sorry. Is Hingala a word? And she says, no. And I go, then does it mean anything? And she goes, it does not mean. And I go, okay, so why are we singing it then? Then she goes, because it's in the song. And I go, no, then I don't want to sing it. And she goes, Anoush. And I go, no, I'm heavily Armenian. I just started middle school. I'm trying to understand Nassau County. And I only pretend to know what a lacrosse stick is. And I just don't have any more room in my life for something that doesn't make sense. And she goes, Anoush, American songs have words in them sometimes that don't make sense. And I go, no, they don't. It's American songs. No. And she goes, yes. And I go, okay, can you give me an example? And she thinks for a minute, and she goes, Hingala. And she goes, it's like shubab, shubab. And she did the shimmy too. She did the shimmy, and we all laughed. We laughed really hard, and it was the first time anyone ever laughed at St. Barton's Cathedral, and I was also really moved because I love the Ronettes. I love all the 60s girls groups. And I've devoted my life to this cryptic culture, to this cryptic language. And it meant so much to me to finally have an Armenian teacher who could speak to me in mine. And after all the anxiety and fear of dying alone started to chip away, for one brief moment, I was just a kid singing a song. Thank you so much.
Shubab, shubab. She's not wrong. She's not wrong. It's so funny too. I recently had a situation. I'm finally at the age where certain bits of slang that like Gen Z and Gen Alpha have I'm completely like in the dark on. Like I was hanging out with friends and suddenly we found ourselves asking, "What the fuck is skibbity toilet?" And I did one precursory Google search. I'm like, I don't want this. No. One more time for Anoush, everybody. Are you guys having a great time? Yes. Thank you. We've got one more storyteller coming up for you, but before we do that, we got a little bit of housekeeping to do. Because maybe you're watching the show and you're like, oh my God, I'm having such a great time. How can I find out more? Well, or maybe you're sitting there and you're thinking, oh, that makes me think of this thing that happened to me in high school, or this thing that happened to me in middle school. Well, guess what? You could be a guest on our show. If you want, send a quick pitch, like 2 or 3 sentences of your story idea to awkwardteenageyears@gmail.com. We are always checking, always looking. We've had people on the show before who have never told a story on stage before, and we've helped make them feel confident, get their stories ready, and everything like that. We're always looking, so feel free to send your pitches there. Also, if you want to find out more about us on social media, you know, if you're like not happy, then you can find us on Instagram, Threads. Who here is actually on Threads? Anybody? Okay, well, we're there. And Facebook. You know what? Follow at least one of them so that you can at least stay up to date in terms of like future shows and future guests that we're going to have on. And then if you want, we've been doing this show, like I said earlier, since 2020. Thank you. Yes. Lauren, our tech wizard in the booth, has been part of us since then. Yes. It was one of the last shows a lot of people saw before lockdown. We continue to do it online during COVID, and then as things reopened, we've been a live show here with Frigid and at Under St. Mark's. We have a backlog of past shows on our YouTube page, so just search at Awkward Teenage Years. You can see the past guests we've had on, listen to their stories and everything. It's been a lot of fun, and hit like and subscribe while you're there. But that's the way you can follow us and a way you could possibly be on this stage yourself. So without further ado, let's get to our final storyteller. You guys ready? Our final storyteller, we're very excited to have him back on. He's been on once before. He's a storyteller who's been seen at The Moth and the Artichoke Storytelling Show, and he's a founder of the Muslim Writers Collective. Please welcome Hamdan Azhar.
Yeah. All right, how's it going? All right, so this story takes place in New York City. I am a high school student at the Bronx High School of Science, which is one of the most prestigious high schools in the world. I produced 9 Nobel Prize winners, which the school is extremely proud of. It also produced me, which the school is less proud of. And it's junior year, and a lot happens. You know, basically, I try to overthrow my principal. I try to launch a one-man rebellion. I'm very excited about it. The principal does not think it's funny. She actually tries to have me expelled. And I'm a nerdy kid. I called the ACLU. They come in, you know, with a 30-page lawsuit against the Department of Education. The school backs down. I'm vindicated. I survive another day. But let's be real. I know it happened. It took a big toll on me. And I got really sad. And now it's senior year, and everyone's applying to college. And, you know, I applied early action, which is a thing that, you know, nerdy kids like to do. I applied to 4 schools, Harvard, Georgetown, U Chicago, and MIT. And I'm excited. I'm waiting October, November, and I get 4 thin envelopes in the mail. I didn't get into any of them. And I fall into a funk. I'm like, there's no point. I'm like, the school is probably telling all these colleges I suck. They're telling them I'm a troublemaker. And I'm just going to die single and alone and just a high school graduate, which is sad because, you know, I come from an overachieving immigrant family. So December 31st comes and goes. I don't apply to a single college. March, April rolls around. Everyone is like, oh, my God, where are you going? Now, remember, I have 0 friends, but for some reason, kids are still coming up to me. Where are you going? I'm like, who are you? And one day, I'm like, They all want to know, right? Like, where's that weird kid going? And I'm like, I'm going to Georgetown. I announce it to the world. I'm going to Georgetown. They're okay, they leave me alone. One day, the assistant principal grabs me in the hallway. She says, Hamdan, you're telling everyone you're going to Georgetown. And I'm like, yeah, they have a great, foreign service program. I want to be a diplomat. She says, we called Georgetown. You didn't get in. I was like, oh, interesting. And she's like, what's wrong with you? Do you not care? And I'm like, what's the point? I'm a nihilist. I'm so sad. I am a lot chubbier than that. Oh, that's exactly what I looked like in high school. So I'm like, what's the point? And she sits me down. She takes me to an office. She hands me a rotary phone. Like, it's an old story. And she gives me a copy of U.S. News and World Report college rankings. She says, you're going to sit in this office, start at number 1, Harvard, go down the list and say, I'm a student at the Bronx High School of Science. Will you please take a late application? And I sit in that office for 4 hours. Finally, number 41, Penn State, picks up. They say, yes, we will take your application. And that's how I ended up at Penn State. So I'm at Penn State. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Penn State. Penn State is a party school. It is a party school. The biggest pastimes are drinking and watching football, neither of which I know anything about. I'm walking on campus. There are all of these young people, like, nicely dressed and suave, and it's just like all of these girls everywhere. And I have never kissed a girl. I've never even held hands with a girl. And I am not happy. I'm just really sad. It's a really big school, too. It's 50,000 students, which is crazy for me. And I'm just like, how did I end up here? I'm so depressed because you have to understand, even the stoners at Bronx High School of Science, they ended up at places like Dartmouth and UPenn. And I was way smarter than all of those kids. And I'm like, what am I doing at Penn State? Like, I felt so miserable. I felt so much shame. And at this time, I am dressing just like this. And I am driving my uncle's hand-me-down Lincoln Town Car. 1992 Lincoln Town Car. And it's not even like a nice Lincoln Town Car. Like, the door doesn't open, the engine doesn't, you need to use a wrench to start the engine. You need to use another wrench to pop the hood. One of the tires is constantly leaking gas. And I'm just driving around, 16-year-old at Penn State, driving a Lincoln Town Car, dressing like this. Obviously, I have 0 friends. And I am just so depressed. Like, I'm just like, oh, it's weighing down on me. And I start sleeping all day. I wake up at 11:50 p.m. because the campus eatery closes at midnight. So I wake up at 11:50. I have an alarm. I run across the street. I get a pint of Ben & Jerry's ice cream. I get a can of Pringles. I get a packet of mozzarella sticks. And I'm up all night. That's my one meal of the day. I'm reading books in my room. I'm like uber nerd. I'm doing my homework. I don't go to any classes. At 11 a.m. I walk. I drop off the papers in the professor's mailboxes. I come back to my room. I watch ER. I pass out. I go to sleep. It is a very sad life, and I feel like I've let everyone down. And then one day, I open the student newspaper, and I look at the date, and it's September 11th, 2003. September 11, 2003, I opened the editorial page, and there are all of these letters to the editor and op-eds, and all of them are saying horrible things about Muslims. They're saying they attacked our country, they're horrible people, they're barbarians, we should bomb Iraq, we should bomb Iran, we should even bomb India because it's I country. I don't know what these kids are saying. And it's just like, it's tearing my heart apart because I grew up in New York City, I grew up in a very diverse community, I grew up, after 9/11, and it's just like, what is happening here? And even though I'm so depressed, like, I'm getting more depressed, but part of me is like, yo, you gotta do something about this. Because I was always a writer. I took AP English, AP US History. I was a nerd. I took all the AP classes I had to. And I sit that day, I'm sitting at my computer at 11 a.m. I'm about to go to sleep, and I'm like, what if I said something? What if I told them my perspective? And there's a thing that says, if you too can send a letter to the editor, email letters@collegian.psu.edu. And I pour my heart out. I say, I'm a Muslim kid. I grew up in Brooklyn. I'm American just like you are, and I don't know what this guy is talking about. Muslims are Americans. We are good people. We invented algebra. We invented geometry. I don't know if that's true, but I put that in the I put that in the letter. I was like, we invented all of these incredible things, and you guys really got to just be more welcoming and be more open-minded. And I pass out. I go to sleep for the night. The next day, I wake up. I go to the campus, stand. I open the newspaper, and my name is in the newspaper. And I am just like dying at this point. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, who, like me? Like, this depressed, like, loser sits in my room, eats ice cream all day, and my name is in the newspaper? It was just like, wow. It felt so good, but at the same time, I felt so guilty. I was like, how? How is this happening to me? And then I see in the student newspaper, the Muslim Student Association will be having their general body meeting on Wednesday. And this idea comes in my head. I was like, I'm here. I have no friends. I'm so depressed. I write one thing and they put it in the newspaper. Maybe I can go find my people. Maybe there are other people like me. But I am so afraid. I've never been to a meeting like that before. You have to imagine 50,000 people. I have 0 friends. I had a roommate and I scared him away after 2 days. So I'm all by myself, literally all by myself. And I walk into this meeting. I remember it was 7 p.m. on a Wednesday night. It's in a room, in the Biobehavioral Health Sciences building. I walk into the room. Everyone is so cool. They're wearing designer jeans and designer sneakers, and the girls are so cute. Some of them are wearing floral headscarves, and I'm just like looking at the floor. I'm looking at my shoes. I'm like, what am I doing here? And there's a sign-in sheet at the meeting where you sign in your name because it's old school before computers. And I write my name, Hamdan Azhar. I pass it to the kid behind me. He looks at it. He whispers to the kid next to him. All of a sudden, there are 10 people gathered around that sign-in sheet. Hamdan Azhar, Hamdan Azhar, Hamdan. I'm like, what did I do? Like, am I in trouble? Like, do they know I'm such a bad kid? And they point at me and they say, they pick up the newspaper. They had that from last week. They said, you're Hamdan Azhar. I said, yes. They say, you're the one who wrote that letter in the newspaper. I said, yeah, that was me. And they said, we've been trying to find out who you were for the past week because we've been at this school for years, and every year this is what happens. People are writing horrible things about us. No one has ever written anything back. They look at me and they say, you're the one we've been waiting for. And I just want to melt into a puddle. I'm like, is this really happening? And I'm like, I'm so sorry. It was a misunderstanding. I didn't mean to do it. And they say, no, we're not going to hear that. Tonight, we're having elections for our board. We want you to be our public relations representative. And I am just like melting, and everyone is staring at me, and they're looking at me so warmly and so lovingly, and I have never had this many friends. And there's one other kid running for that position, Dan Hummel, who's a white convert to Islam. He gets up and he says, I converted to Islam. My family are all, rednecks from Ohio. I teach them about Islam all the time. I'm like, yeah, we worship one God. He's like, I'm happy to do that. And I got up and I said, listen, I don't know why you guys picked me. I just wrote that thing in the newspaper, and I don't really know why you nominated me. And then Dan Hummel gets back up on the mic. He say, I have an announcement. I would like to withdraw my candidacy. Everyone vote for Hamdan Azhar. And that night, they elected me as their public relations representative. And I went on to do so many things. I became a leader. I became an activist. I became a storyteller. But I think back to that horrible winter at Penn State, me sitting in my room, eating ice cream, sleeping all day, having 0 friends, and how quickly things can turn around. And that whole time I was asking myself, what's the purpose? Why am I here? God, why are you doing this to me? And I wish I could tell you that after that moment, everything was great. After that moment, I became a rock star. Everything was beautiful. It doesn't work like that, right? I was still depressed. I was still sad. But at least I had a light at the end of the tunnel. And I remember that Muslim Student Association meeting on Wednesdays became the highlight of my day. I would sleep the whole week. I would wake up. I would go into that meeting. And all of a sudden, I became someone different to them than I was to myself. Because to myself, I was this loser who sat in my room with no friends. And I walked in that room and they saw me as a leader. They saw me as someone who was loved. They saw me as someone who had value. And I think back to that and I realized that maybe there was a purpose behind all of that. Thank you so much for listening. My name is Hamdan Azhar.
Hamdan, have you thought about running for office? Because you seem, both times we've had you, you've seemed to make things happen. And we need a lot of things to happen right now. I'm just gonna say, I'm kidding, we're fucked. Anyway, thanks for sharing that, guys. Thank you for coming. Give it up one more time for Zach, for Anoush, for Patrick, for Hayden, for Hamdan. Give it up for our tech wizard, Lauren, in the booth. And give it up for our house staff here at Frigid. Thank you guys so much. Our next show is going to be in November. Follow us on social media to find out more. Thank you so much. We'll see you there. Have a great night, everybody.